Hi, it's Tim Hagen from Progress Coaching. And one of the things that we talk about all the time is leadership training, leadership development, all these things that leaders have to do. And I really think, present company included, I think to a certain degree we have this wrong. Let me explain why. There are a couple reasons why leaders will have struggles today. Number one, we inherit people. What does that mean? We inherit their childhoods, their relationship with past management, how they have cultivated their own skill sets when it comes to self-awareness, approachability, coachability, their willingness to accept feedback even when they disagree. So we inherit people. That's number one. Number two is we have to have tough conversations. So the first one is we inherit people. And the second one is tough conversations. Most people don't take tough conversations well. And what I mean by that is they don't accept things that they don't want to hear about themselves. Do you know that 85% of people significantly lack self-awareness? So number one, we inherit people. We inherit their childhoods, their lack of education on feedback, professional conduct, professional etiquette in terms of seeking feedback and just saying thank you versus saying my boss attacked me and I went and told four other people. That's what typically happens. And then the ability to have really tough conversations. The third thing that I would think that people really struggle with in terms of leadership is emotional intelligence. We inherit a lot of lack of emotional intelligence, self-awareness, self-regulation, empathy, social skills, and motivation, which leads me to number four, and that is motivation. Here's the toughest thing, and I would share that leaders really have an opportunity to improve in this, and that is our ability to understand what motivates someone. So I'm going to kind of go back from the bottom, from motivation up to EQ, up to tough conversations, and then to people that we actually inherit. Those are the four main reasons. So let me go in reverse order. Motivation. We have to find out what motivates people. It's that simple. We have to find out what motivates people. And what does that mean? If I have someone doing a job, yes, we have to motivate that person to do the job. How do you do that? Number one, 76% of people are at their most motivated state when they're progressing in their job. Yet we typically call people into the office and what do we hear? Uh-oh, what did I do wrong? Because that's what we do. Call people into the office for the good stuff. Do you know Gallup says that people engage 8 times more when we lead with their strengths? Why don't we leverage those things? And if you do, you've motivated them specifically to their job. Now, the second part of motivation is the WIFT. What's in it for them? Where do they want to go? If you have somebody who wants to go to that next level, I think one of the best books out there is Promotions Are So Yesterday by Julie Winkle Giulioni. I just love it because she identifies 8 areas she has an assessment. It's not always the promotion. So if you try to promote someone, and I'll never forget this, we had a client where a manager said, I promoted these 2 people, and I found out a year later, they didn't want to get promoted. They didn't want to go into leadership. And he said, I never knew that. I thought I was doing this great thing, right? Great intentions. People felt like they couldn't say no. So what did they do? Okay, I'll do it. Got frustrated. Both left the organization, which cost the company money. So we have to find out what motivates people. So we teach a variety of things. I'll give you one quick snapshot. Number one, find out presently where they're at. You're going to ask 5 questions. Number one, what strengths do you exhibit right now as it relates to your current job? Number 2, what opportunities do you have to improve? What do you love? What do you like? And what do you dislike about your current job? You're going to get a really good understanding. If they can't answer the love or the like, this person's going to quit pretty soon. Then you go over to column 3. So that's column 1. You go past column 2, go to column 3. And then you say, well, let's talk about your desired state. What does that look like to you? Over 50 to 60% of people, when they first do this technique, say, they didn't know. I said, right. What do you mean, right? I go, you now know. They don't know, but at least you asked. Now we can help them cultivate it. So then you ask questions, which are the same questions. Where do you want to go? What does that destination look like? What strengths do you think you need? What opportunities do you think you need right now to develop to get there? What would you love about that job? What would you like about that job? What would you dislike about that job or prefer not to do? You get a snapshot of their current and their ideal state. Then you go to the middle and say, what actions do we need to take to move there? That's a career coaching map. We call it whiteboard coaching. So motivation is tough. And the biggest mistake leaders make is we try to motivate the person doing the job specific to that job. Motivate the person to do the job to go to their desired state. If they don't know where it is, they'll appreciate you for just asking, and it starts a whole nother conversation. That's motivation. Number 2, emotional intelligence. There are 5 tenets: self-awareness, self-regulation, empathy, motivation skills, and social skills. So I'm going to start with self-awareness. 85% of people significantly lack self-awareness. Think about that. Now I'm going to throw in another statistic here. Gallup reports that only 29% of people are actively engaged. The other 71% are neutral or negative, meaning they're negative in the workplace. They're actively disengaged. So think about a leader taking over a team of 10 people. 8.5 lacks self-awareness. So giving feedback isn't going to work right out of the gate. 7.1 are neutral, or I'm disengaged, I'm negative, I'm going to talk at the water cooler. And we're going to put that all on leaders. Your team's not performing. And then number 3, having those tough conversations. I encourage you to do something called co-authoring. And I share this with people all the time. When you co-author a relationship and you co-author feedback and tough conversations, you basically sit down and say, Jenny, what's the best way to give you feedback that's both strength-based and where you have opportunities to improve? Notice I didn't say constructive feedback, because tough conversations don't have to be tough. They become tough because we either avoid them, we wait till we have to have them, or we don't do them very well. But the minute you ask someone, what's the best way to approach you? They're respectful of your effort. They trust you a little more. It doesn't mean they hug and kiss you when you give them the feedback. Yet what it means is you've created a wall of trust. You've created a little bit more acceptable type of behaviors or reactions. Then, number 2, I encourage you to always use something called permission plus the sword. Permission. Jill, do you mind if I share with you a couple perspectives where I think we could work more effectively together, or where you have an opportunity to raise your game? Language matters. Stay away from constructive feedback. Even though it's constructive feedback, the words will trigger an emotional response. And when people emotionally respond, they lose logic and rational behavior. Then they start to tell their own story. My boss attacked me. I can't believe she said this to me. And it becomes this big thing. And it's like, no, you're late for your job. Get your ass to work on time. It's not rocket science. And that's what happens. So when you ask for permission, you don't need permission. But the reason you ask for permission is it lowers the walls of defensiveness. And then the sword is, and I'd love to hear from you what you feel like you need to do, because I think making assumptions of what you are doing or where you want to go or what you need to do in this particular issue, I think would be unfair to you. Now the sword is you're owning why you're approaching them. It's not just about them. You just don't want to make assumptions. And it creates a really soft landing, palatable place to have a really good, tough conversation. Last, we inherit people. And I was just at the Milwaukee Brewers organization. And after 18 years, we had somebody in the session who was new to the organization, relatively new, and said, I've never seen an organization a training where people were not rolling their eyes. Everybody was engaged. Everybody was taking notes. Everyone was practicing. Now at the Milwaukee Brewers, we implemented a peer-to-peer coaching system, and we had to practice it in the early years. It wasn't always smooth sailing. To say that to you, I would be misleading you. And when she said that to me, and I said, it's not the training, it's the culture. And she goes, what do you mean? I said, training has no value unless it's reinforced. And again, the people in the training field, you know how I feel. I love training, yet training combined with coaching is powerful. And so we inherit people and we put a lot on leaders. If you try to fire someone today, you got to go through HR, got to make sure we don't get sued. That puts leaders in a tough spot. And then when you have somebody who's inside that team who's not reacting as well as we would hope, or behaving or performing as well, we inherit that. And when we give them feedback, they do this to you. Okay, sure. And we as leaders get lulled into, well, they kind of agree with me. No, they think you're full of crap. They can't wait for you to shut up so they can get out of your office. They're nodding off. They're not nodding in agreement, at least not all the time. Now, as crass as that sounds, we have to think about when we inherit people, there are two things I would encourage you to do, is to get them to practice self-awareness. How do you do that? Set up a peer-to-peer conversation. Every week, you get together with another teammate, whether inside the team, the department, even cross-departmentally. And you have to do two things. Number one, just have a social conversation. Find out some things you have in common. Number two, ask them for feedback. 2-to-1, maybe 3-to-1. What are 2 or 3 things I'm doing really well from your viewpoint? Then what's that one area you would encourage me to raise my game? Raise my game. Not run yourself into a wall and give yourself a concussion, because this is dreaded constructive feedback, is, 3-to-1. Give them that feedback and then just absorb it and just say thank you. See, when we ask for things like, well, could you give me an example? Now we've got a situation we can explain away. No. See, what I meant to do there, it's a load of crap, because it absolves ourselves of looking in the mirror. So self-awareness can be practiced with those peer-to-peer conversations. Number 2 is to have people learn how to eat feedback. We teach this. We have a whole course. We have a tracking system, and it's called Eat Feedback, Embrace, Ask, and Tell. So if somebody says, Tim, I hate that green shirt, I would first embrace it and say, well, first of all, thank you for the feedback. That interrupts the emotional reaction. How dare you? I look fantastic in this shirt. I don't say anything. I shut down. I mentally think these things. I'm going to do something to this guy's car. And then after eat, you ask, well, what color shirt would you encourage me to use? And if someone says blue, the green looks great on you. It just is a little fuzzy online. See, and then it's not personal. So embrace and ask use something called a psychological interrupt. See, when we give feedback and we're the only ones talking, do you know what happens when people are nodding? They're coming up with the story to discount the feedback. Now, the T is the tell. Let me tell you what I'm going to do with your feedback. I'm going to go out and buy a blue shirt per your suggestion. And when your people start practicing that, self-awareness goes up. Leadership latitude goes up. Acceptance of leadership goes up. And what we have to do, everybody, is understand people are motivated by different things. Everybody, you included, me included, can improve our emotional intelligence. Get an assessment done. If you want help, we can help you. We're certified in it. Number 3, practice having tough conversations, but reverse engineer it. What's the best way to approach you? It levels the playing field. And then last, we need to know we inherit people's behaviors. See, I think we don't realize this, and I believe this very strongly. We inherit people's childhoods. And when kids go through high school sports or extracurricular activities and the parents complain to the coaches and yell at the referees, they're not doing it with this intent. But the kids are hearing, it's not me. The ref screwed us. The coach doesn't like me. Now it absolves me. I don't have to look in the mirror. And I saw one of the greatest things I've ever heard from a coach in youth sports. And I've coached boys volleyball on and off for about 30 some years. And this guy says, when you are yelling to your kid during the game and telling him or her what to do, you are discounting them from developing critical thinking skills to figure it out on their own. You might be enabling a lack of thinking. He said, let me coach. I've been doing this a long time. I know what I'm doing. And I felt the same way about volleyball. And it was so interesting when I watched that video. The parents' jaws were on the ground. They're like, yeah, he's right. Because we lose it, right? We lose it when we see our kids struggle. I got to fix it. And that goes back to EQ. So think about when we need to get greater leadership acceptance, the biggest challenge that we all have, everybody, isn't just leaders' ability, but it's also the reception of leadership. Reach out to us if you have any questions. Thanks, everybody. Hope this is worth it.